Om Badram Karnebihi Shruniyama Devaha Badram Pashyema Akshabihi Ryajatraha Sthirairangair Tushtuvam Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitan Yadayuhu Swastinah Indro Vridrashravaha Swastinah Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastinah Tarksho Arishtanemihi Swastino Bruhaspatir Dadatu Yo antah pravishya mama vacha imam prashuptam sanjeevayati akila shaktidhara swadamnam anyam shtahasta charana shravanatvagadin pranan namo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam lasatu shrimadananda tirtendurno hrudambare yadvachaschandrika swanta santapam vinikrantati पदवाक्य प्रमाण ज्ञान प्रणम्य शिरसा गुरून् व्याकरिष्ये यथाबोधं विष्णु तत्व विनिर्णयम्. So, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening for folks who have chosen to follow the path of Shreyas and have joined the Upanishad Chintana today. So, today is the 9th session. We have been doing Kataka Upanishad first Kanda for about 3.5 months. So where are we? So we are at this section. Tapasa chiyate brahma tato annam abhijayate. Annat prano manaha satyam lokaha karmasucha amrutam. We are at this interface between the first kanda and the second kanda. So one of the key topics that we discussed in the previous session really is talking about this creatorship of Brahman, creatorship of Aksharanamaka Paramatma. So that is what we were discussing. And this is one of the fundamental axiomatic truths of Vedas. And what is that truth? God's created universe is real. There may be folks who may have a different view on this, but we are interested in what the Apaurushaya Veda is telling us through Angirasa, who has taught this to Shuanaka. So what did Angirasa say about creation? Yata urnanabihi srijate grhnate cha, yata prithvyam oshadayah sambhavanti, yata sataha purushat keshalomani, tata aksharat sambhavati iha vishwam. And how does that Brahman creates? Tapasa chiyate brahma tato annam abhijayate. Annat prano manaha satyam lokaha karmasucha amrutam. So go back and review those slides that have all been uploaded in our YouTube channel, where these are all fundamental concepts of Vedantic philosophy. Yeah, the words of these verses are absolutely clear. Nobody can twist it and come up with an alternative expression or an explanation, because these verses, he's saying, just like how a spider weaves the web, so does Brahman who creates the universe. Just like how plants come out from earth, so does Brahman nourishes the jiva, so that each jiva, as per its swabhava, grows and matures, and some achieve moksha, some go to andatama, some are stuck in nitya samsara. Okay. And how is this creatorship of Paramatma? Yata satah purushat keshalomani. Just as how the hair grows spontaneously in our bodies, such is the situation where Brahman's creatorship of the universe is a spontaneous act, meaning it's an effortless act. Okay. But that effortless act does not mean it is a thoughtless act. Okay. It just does not happen. Like some folks think that the universe is an illusion. An illusion is an involuntary act. Period. Nobody can have any discussions on that. An illusion is an involuntary act. We never go voluntarily and say, let me see a mirage, or let me see a snake on a rope. No, it just happens accidentally. Such is the view of certain schools that talk about the creatorship of Brahman. Whereas look at what Mundaka Upanishad is saying. Tapasa chiyate, this Brahman thought. Then he created. What did he create? And we've looked at this last week. Annam, annat prano manaha satyam lokaha. Look at this word satyam. Just satyam lokaha. Okay. Again, no controversies there as to what Angirasa's view is in Atharva Veda. Okay. Satyam lokaha. So just before we did just before this Upanishad, we did Isha Upanishad, right? Ishavasya Upanishad, as you know, only has got 18 mantras, but we spent about, I think, 6 months contemplating Isha Upanishad. Look at the 8th verse. Kavir, Manishihi, Paribuhu, Swayambhuhu, Yata Tatyato Artan, Vyadadat Shashvatibhyaha Samabhyaha Yata Tatyato Artan. Okay, we spent 2 sessions on this particular verse. Yata Tatyato Artan. This Artan, this Jagat is Yatartha. Yata Tatyato. Yatartha means it is real. Yeah, that is the view of Isha Upanishad, where Swayambhuva Manu is praying to Yajnanamaka Paramatma, isn't it? So when Yajnanamaka Paramatma is being worshipped, the Swayambhuva Manu there says, your universe is Yata Tatyato Artha. Okay? Of course, our Veda Vyasa then gives the definition. Once he said, Atato Brahma Jijnasa, and he immediately defines that this Brahman is who? Janmadhyasya Yataha. What is that creatorship, etc. of Brahman? What is that? Utpatti, Sthiti, Samhara, Niyatir, Jnanam, Avrittihi, Bandha, Moksha, Cha Purushat, Yasmat, Sa Harirekarat, Skanda Puran. Yeah, it gives 8-fold cosmic dispensation of the universe by Brahman. Who is Brahman? Brahma Shabdashta Vishnaveva. Yeah, Acharya settles that who that Brahman is. And what does that Brahman does? He does 8-fold dispensations of the universe. What does Taittiriya Upanishad say? Taittiriya Upanishad also, every Upanishad talks about the creatorship of Brahman. Taittiriya Upanishad says, Yato va imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti, yat prayanti, abhisam vishanti, tad vijijnasasva tad brahmeti. It gives a definition of who that Brahman is. Tad Brahma iti, who? From whom everything comes out. Creatorship. He who is the creator is Brahman. Tad Brahmeti. And the same Brahma Sutra in the 4th Adhyaya also says, Jagat Vyapara Varjam. This affairs of looking at creating the universe, maintaining it, controlling it, destroying it, etc., etc., the 8-fold dispensation is only with Brahman. Jagat Vyapara Varjam. He is the only one who can do it and nobody else. Okay, for folks who think they themselves are Brahman, good luck to them. I challenge them to create the universe. They can't even create a piece of cake. Okay, so when such is the situation, such is the ignorance that some folks think that they themselves are Brahman. Yeah, that is their sad state and they are entitled for their views. Acharya then says what? Bahuchitra Jagat, Bahuda Karanat, Parashaktihi, Ananta Gunaha Paramaha. When you see this wonderful universe, think about the wonderful creator who is behind this universe. Okay? And this wonderful creator has created this real universe. That is what Isha Upanishad and Mundaka Upanishad that we are studying is categorically saying. What did Jayatirtha say? Janmadhyasya yataha iti bhagavata sutrakarena jagat udayadi nimitta karanatvam parasya brahmano lakshanam avihitam. If Brahman was not creating a real universe, Veda Vyasa would never have said Janmadhyasya yataha. Okay, Veda Vyasa is not stupid. He is Sarvajna. And he says Janmadhyasya yataha, then the Janmadi has to be real. So a detailed description of the sequence of creation described in the Upanishad is relevant only if the creation is real rather than an illusion. If it's an illusion, why waste time describe something that does not actually exist? So throughout all the Upanishads, and we have done this before, throughout all the Upanishads, creatorship, the sequence of creation, what comes next and so on, is very, very beautifully described from various angles. Okay? These things we have to accept from all the Upanishads and come up with we have to synthesize what the overall structure of the creatorship of the universe is. And when we do the 10 Upanishads, we'll get the overarching view of how this creatorship of Brahman operates. Okay. And if Upanishads are talking about this, and if this creatorship is an illusion, to be honest, it just doesn't fit in as to why somebody should take all the effort to describe the sequence of creation if the whole damn thing is an illusion. Okay. So, tapasa chiyate brahma. So let's dwell on this particular line a little bit. Tapasa chiyate brahma. Tapasa means thought, thinking. So he thought, says the Upanishad. So when he thought, creation happened. And that's what again is a constant theme of the Upanishad. Tat shristva tadeva anupravishat. That is a Taittiriya Upanishad. But before that it says, he thought. So tapas taptva idam sarvam asrujata. Okay, that's what the Taittiriya Upanishad says. All Upanishads say the same thing. So the question there is, why does he have to think? Okay, and then we thought about this, right? Our thought process always has a component of ignorance. Okay. For those of you who are psychologists and psychiatrists in this group, you will have much more of a view on this, but it transpires, and if you do manana of this, most of our thought process always has a component of ignorance. What am I going to make for tomorrow's breakfast? There is a component of ignorance there, and that is why we are thinking. Okay. Is India going to win in the World Cup today? We don't know. There is an element of ignorance, so we are thinking about it. So there is always a component of ignorance in our thought process. Is that the case for Brahman as well? Is Brahman is also thinking and then creating because there's something he's not sure about, or he does not know how he is going to create, what components he is going to use, what is the sequence of creation? No, immediately Angirasa gives the answer. Yah sarvajnaha sarvavid, yasya jnanamayam tapaha, tasmad etat brahma nama rupam annam cha jayate. Okay, so what does that mean? Yah sarvajnaha, this Paramatma, this Aksharanamaka Paramatma, who is the Devata of this Upanishad, Angirasa says, he is Sarvajnaha. Okay, omniscient. Omniscience is a quality. Yeah. So when Angirasa says, yes, Sarvajnaha, he is not talking about a Nirguna Brahman, who some people believe is not omniscient. He is just a zero entity. No, when Angirasa says this, yes, Sarvajnaha, he is very clear. He is saying this Brahman has omniscience. What is omniscience? He knows past, present, and future. So, Yaha Sarvajnaha. So, he knows everything. So, he doesn't have, his thought process does not have ignorance because he knows everything. When somebody knows everything, there is no question of ignorance in that person. Okay, so that is one idea you pick up from that particular word. Yaha Sarvajnaha. And then the next one is interesting, Sarvavit. Okay, Sarvavit. Sarvavit means, when you look at it superficially, Sarvavid also seems the same thing as Sarvajnaha. Sarvajnaha. Nyaha means knowledge, Sarvajnaha means all knowledge. Vid also means knowledge. And Sarvavid means also may imply omniscient. So we have to look at the context. So Sarvavid actually has three meanings. Sarvam Vid, omniscient. But Sarvajnaha has already been mentioned by Angirasa in the previous word. So we should search for, are there other meanings of Sarvavid? There are two further meanings. Sarvatra Vidyate equals Sarvavid. Vidyate, Sarvatra, omnipresent. This Akshara is omnipresent. Okay. Sarvam Vindati. So this Akshara has attained everything and he is Aptakama. Only an omnipotent being can be Aptakama and has attained everything. Always, eternal. Okay. So it gives you those ideas of omnipresence and omnipotency of Aksharanamaka Paramatma. And again, omnipotence is a guna. Omnipresence is a guna. Omniscience is a guna. Okay. But these gunas are non-material gunas. And it is from that perspective, he is called Nirguna, in the sense that he does not have material gunas. It does not mean he is a zero, useless, empty entity. Okay, so we need to watch these words carefully and not fall into the trap of thinking otherwise. Okay, so Sarvam Vindati. So this is interesting. It opens up another level of philosophy here. So if this Paramatma, if this Aksharanamaka Paramatma has attained everything, yeah, he is Aptakama, he is omnipotent, he has attained everything. So what is it that he needs to attain by creating this universe? Why should he have bothered to create this universe and put all these folks like you and me suffering endlessly day in and day out? What is the need? And what is he to gain? Okay, so that is the next question that we should be asking. When we talk about creatorship of Brahman, these are all the next questions that should come to our mind. Does he gain anything from this act of creation? Is there a motive? So, is there a motive? Let's say, there are only two possible answers to that. Yes, there is a motive, or no, there is a motive. So, yes, there is a motive. If Brahman has a motive to create the universe, then he is not a Aptakama. That means he has not attained anything. He is not Purna. He is like you and me. So that is the philosophical argument there. If he has no motives, then that is impossible, because all sentient beings act to gain something. You and me, we are all sentient beings. We are souls, right? We do certain acts because we want to gain something. Okay? But if you are saying that this Brahman has no motive towards creatorship, then there are only two possibilities. Either he is not a creator, there is somebody else who is creating the universe, or he is probably crazy to perform a purposeless act. Because nobody does a purposeless act in this universe. We see this in this world. Unless you are crazy, you will not perform a purposeless act, or he is not a creator. So these are all the questions that come, and our Sarvagnya, father of the Vedanta, Vedavyasa Brahma Sutra, has actually taken up these questions from these verses in Mundaka Upanishad, and he has given us two sutras. Om na prayojanavatvat om. Om lokavattu lila kaivalyam om. Okay. So the first sutra is important here. Na prayojanavatvat. Yes, this created universe is of no benefit to Paramatma, but he creates the universe for our benefit, so that we do our sadhanas and progress in our lives and find our destination, whatever that may be, that we got to find that destination. And what this Aksharanamaka Paramatma is doing is, he is giving us that facilities to act this out so that we can reach our destination. So we are still in that reviewing of creatorship, right? We have done Mandukya Upanishad. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm doing Simhavana Lokana Nyaya. Like a lion, we should always look back at what we have seen or studied. And we have studied Mandukya Upanishad. And in Mandukya Upanishad, that was about a couple of years ago. And I just want to remind you, in the Mandukya Upanishad, what does that say? Vibhutim prasavam tu anye manyante srishti chintakaha. Swapna maya swarupeti srishtir anyair vikalpitaha. I've underlined that. Icha matram prabho shishtiriti srishtau vinishtitaha. Just 2 lines is enough for today's discussion. So in Mandukya Upanishad, again, go back. It says 4 possible views of creation. Either it is a transformation of Brahman, or it is an illusion. And in Mandukya Upanishad, Varuna, in the form of a Manduka, when he is contemplating on Brahman, he has already said, those who think that this is a Swapna Maya, Vikalpita. Vikalpita, critical word, Vikalpita, according to Mundaka, says this is a wrong approach. This is a wrong. They are thinking it otherwise. If you say this is an illusion, it is a Vikalpita. Whereas Icha matram prabho shishti iti srishtau vinishtitaha. Philosophers, then they do manana and come to the conclusion that this creatorship of Brahman, Icha matram prabho srishtihi, it is his sankalpa that he has to create like this, real creation like this. Vi nishtitaha. Nishtitaha means firmly conclude. Yeah. So these are important. So 3 possible. So these are the views of creation. But Mandukya Upanishad then says this creatorship of the real universe is his Satya Sankalpa, which is the final conclusion that Mandukya Upanishad arrives at. So then this particular verse also thinks about what are the 3 possible reasons for his creation. It could be his enjoyment, it could be a play, or it is his intrinsic nature to create. Okay. And Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a very famous verse, Rasamhi eva ayam labdva anandi bhavati. Kohe vanyat kaha pranyat yedesha akashaha anando nasya. Okay. So because this Brahman is full of ananda, infinite ananda. When we are in ananda, what we are doing? We just jump and dance, right? So it is that kind of a metaphor that this Upanishad says this guy is so infinitely blissful that he is so infinitely blissful that he is just creating, which is he has no efforts to create. He just creates the universe. Beautiful verse of Taittiriya Upanishad. Kohye vanyat kaha pranyat edesha akashaha Anandonasya. So go back and look at those things. So this is the new line for today. Yeah. So what did we say? Yaha sarvajnaha sarvavid yasya jnanamayam tapaha. So that Brahman did what? Tasmat yetat Brahma. So this Brahman created what? Tasmat Etad Brahma. So the first one to appear, as you know, is Mahat Tattva, and its Abhimani is who? Chaturmukha. So this Akshara is called Brahman in the Paramamukya Vritti. Yeah, whereas this Brahma is Chaturmukha Brahma, who's got four faces, some folks call it. So Chaturmukha Brahma. So Tasmad Etat means this Brahman who is next to this major Brahman, this Chaturmukha Brahma, what did he do? Under the instruction of the Supreme Brahman, Chaturmukha Brahma did what? Nama Rupam Annam Cha Jayate. Beautiful verse. What is this fellow did? Chaturmukha Brahma? Nama Rupam Annam. So here you should understand. So we have done the philosophy of Annam. Last session we understood the various meanings of Annams in the Upanishad. And one of the meanings of Annam is Prithvi. Okay. So what did this Chaturmukha Brahma do? He then creates the universe under the instruction of the Paramatma, who is his Antaryaman. That is why some folks think that Chaturmukha Brahma is the creator of the universe. I mean, when some people say this, my heart actually melts. How can you say Chaturmukha is the creator of the universe? No, Chaturmukha creates under the instruction of Aksharanamaka Paramatma. He is not an independent creator. And yet some people say there is this independent, there is generator, operator, destroyer, and all sorts of rubbish. I just wish that they understand Vedantic philosophy properly. There is only one God, Eko Devaha, and everybody else operates under his instruction. So does Chaturmukha Brahma. And what does he do? Nama Rupam Annam Cha Jayate. Jayate means what? Creates. So the Annam there is material world. Okay. Now, all that we need to do is we have understood Annam, we have understood who this Brahma in this context is. Now we have to understand what is that Namarupa Annam. So I'm going to take a brief pause there and get people to think about what they understand by Namarupa Annam. Anybody wants to share their ideas of Namarupa Annam? We did that in Chandogya Upanishad. Trivrit Karana, Namarupa Vyakarana. So anybody wants to share, or I'll
Madhu, is that the Dhvanyatmaka Prapancha and Namatmaka Prapancha?
Yeah, so that could be Nama. What about Rupam, Sureshji? So Sushuji. No problem. Anybody else wants to take a quick you understand? No worries. Yeah, Pragnesh.
Like potter making different shapes of pots, but all basically is the earth that from where the potter is making the pots. So, and also Narsi Mehta has said the same thing in Gujarati, Nam Rup Jujwa Ante to Hemnu Hem Hoye. What it means is that the gold is same, it may be transformed into any ornamental different shape, but the basic is same. Thank you.
So Nama Rupa. Rupa, you're talking about transformation. So Pragneshji, that's how I understood. So Rupa is transformation of something that is basic. Yeah, thank you.
Can I come in here? I thought Nama was the transformation of the sound from Om, which then gets linked to individual Rupas.
Yeah, beautiful, Devilji. You got it spot on. Thank you very much. So let's think about this Rupatmaka Prapancha and Namatmaka Prapancha. This is again a concept that comes again and again in the Upanishads, and we need to get this always nailed in our head, as it were. Okay. So creatorship, when there is a creation, what is happening? As Pragneshji mentioned, there is this Mula Prakriti or the primordial matter, and that is kind of mixing up and it is transforming into various types of material things from the subtle to the grossest. And the grossest is the Annam or the Prithvi. And what we human beings do with our hands, we take that Prithvi and we further transform it like a potter. We transform that mud into pot, a plate, a jug, and whatever you want to do. So those are the various types of creation, starting off from Mula Prakriti. this carries on. Now, for everything that is created in the universe, there is a name that is given to it. There is a name that is linked to anything that is created in the universe. So that name for anything in the universe, there may be something in Andromeda galaxy, there could be something in some planet there, that is an object, that is a transformation, it is a rupa, but it will have a name. You and me, we may not know the name of that object, but the name exists in the Vedas. Okay, so that is called Namatmaka Prapancha. Then, of course, the Rupatmaka Prapancha is the transformation that is going on. And that transformation, of course, we have done this in our creation series, isn't it? To think about how Srimad Bhagavatam talks about this transformation as Prakrita Srishti and Vaikrita Srishti. And in the Prakrita Srishti, what's going on? Mula Prakriti transforms, a part of the Mula Prakriti, not the whole Mula Prakriti, a fraction of the Mula Prakriti becomes Mahat Tattva. A fraction of the Mahat Tattva becomes Ahankara Tattva. A fraction of the Ahankara Tattvas becomes various Bhutas and Indriyas, Manas. Okay, 5 stages of creation. Then, of course, there is a 6th stage where positive ignorance, which is a real ignorance that comes in this 6th stage. So this sets the scene. So this sets the scene for the emergence of Pindanda. Brahmanda is these, yeah. And then now a scene is set for the Pindanda to evolve. So then you have all the jivas. Then the first thing that Bhagavatam says is the plant kingdom. Then it goes on to describe the 6 steps of plants and so on. Then the 8th stage, it talks about the lower species of the animal kingdom that comes up. And then finally, man who turns up in the Prithvi. And then, of course, what are we doing? We are going around in 8.4 million species. That is in the Pindanda. So this view of Bhagavatam is, I think, utterly scientific. Yeah, nobody can actually dispute this. This is proper evolution described thousands and thousands of years ago. And it makes perfect sense with regards to what Bhagavatam is talking. And then look at Purusha Shukta, which we have done. Tasmad yajnat sarva hutaha richaha samani jagnire chandamsi jagnire tasmad ejus tasmad ajayata. This particular section of the Purusha Shukta is talking about the creation of Namatmaka Prapancha. It says in this great cosmic sacrifice, when the Pindanda and when Brahmanda was being created, then came all the Namas also. From where, as Devalji rightly pointed out, the Om, Akara, Ukara, Makara. Then they become Vyahriti of Vyahriti. Then the Vyahritis become the 3 Padas of Gayatri. The 3 Padas of Gayatri become 3 Vargas of Purusha Shukta. The 3 Vargas of Purusha Shukta become Rig, Yajus and Sama. And then they all become all the words and the sounds of the universe that we are using these days for our material transactions. And what does Brahman do? He links each sound to each rupa that has been created, and there is a link, and that is called Namatmaka Rupatmaka Prapancha. And that is what in Chandogya Upanishad, Uddalaka teaches Swetaketu, Nama Rupa Vyakarana. Go back and revise those sections. So when we have this one, we conclude this particular kanda where what Angirasa is doing is he's giving us a beautiful overview of how this creation is happening and how this Aksharanamaka Paramatma is the creator of the universe. Okay. Iti Mundako Upanishadi Pratama Kande Pratama Mundake Pratamaha Kandaha. So we can pat our backs because we have done the first Kanda of the first Mundaka. So what I have done here is for our benefit. So there may be some new folks who have joined us today, or some of you might have missed a few sessions. So what I have done is I've given you a summary of the first Kanda. So what did these verses, 9 mantras, what did they actually talk about? The first part of the Kanda talked about the Guru Sishya Parampara of the Vedic knowledge. Hayagriva Namaka Paramatma to Chaturmukha Brahma. And then we discussed Atharva, Angira, Satyavaha, Angirasa, and then Angirasa to Shuanaka. And from there, all the rishis and then all the acharyas and so on. So that is the Guru Shishya Parampara that we should never forget. in our lives. We should always be grateful to these rishis who have given us eternal knowledge, not fake gurus of modern times, yeah, who runs philosophy as a business. Our rishis never did that. So my humble request is shun the modern material business-oriented so-called seers. Let's follow the great rishis of the Vedic times who imparted knowledge to us with no expectation in return. Okay, so that is the Guru Sishya Param. Then we understood about classification of knowledge, Aparavidya and Paravidya. Okay. Then we understood what is Paravidya. So before we go to what is Paravidya, who is going to tell us what is Aparavidya? What was the Aparavidya that was described by Angirasa to Shuanaka? So who wants to share their thoughts here, please? Okay, no worries. So Aparavidya, what did Angirasa say? All the Vedas, Rigadya, Bharatam cha. So Rig Vedo, Yajur Vedaha, Atharvana Vedoho, Siksha, Kalpo, Vyakaranam, Niruktam, Chando, Jyotishamiti. So he said all these are Aparavidya if they only talk about material things. But then he said, Atapara Yaya Tad Aksharam Adigamyate. But the same scripture, when you understand that it is only talking about this Paramatma, then that becomes Paravidya. And that Paramatma was described as Akshara. Then what the Angirasa said is, yes, this Akshara is a super giant, big guy. He is knowable, but he is also unknowable. So we understood what is the concept of God in that section as to how we have to approach the concept of God, initially from a very negative aspect, saying that he is not this, he is not that, and so on. Then go to a very positive aspect. So Angirasa told us this Akshara is unknowable through our material dispensations, but he is knowable through Shastras when you understand them as Akshara, when you understand it as Paravidya through the Brahma Sutra. The next concept was, if he is knowable, how is he known? This is what we have been doing for the past 3 or 4 sessions. If he is knowable, how is he known? He should be known as the creator of this universe. That is for you and our contemplation, because we are just mundane, useless, sentient beings who are running around in this world, isn't it? For us to even begin to grasp who this Brahman or Paramatma is, we need to hold on to some idea that will give us some insight into who this person is. And that idea that Angirasa tells us is, think about the creatorship of the universe, this gigantic universe. Have you thought about this? Nobody does it. Yeah. But if we think about it, then we will begin to understand the greatness of this Paramatma who is described in the Vedas as Janmadhyasya Yataha. Once he's described the creatorship of Brahman, then he said, what is the nature of his creation? If you accept that there is somebody who has created this universe, first you need to arrive at a conclusion as what is the nature of his creation. Okay? So there Angirasa, in my view, or at least for the acharyas whom I study, their view is very clear that the nature of his real creation is described here. It's not an illusion. Creation is real creation. And then to substantiate that argument, Angirasa says it's a conscious act, it's a thought full of knowledge, and prompts a well-coordinated creation. Okay. So this is how there is a very natural, very logical sequence of philosophical thought that flows in the first khanda of the first Mundaka. Okay. So I hope you found that useful, because in the very next khanda, this is, if so far we think that we've had a lot of interesting, very fascinating philosophical ideas that is being discussed here, the second khanda is definitely practical politics. So they will.
I can wait till the end of the lecture, but it seems relevant over here. Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So in this set of sessions that we are doing, we discuss the knowable, unknowable, etc., and how do children know So they see an apple and they link an apple and they hear the word apple. So how do we have the Rupatmaka Prapancha of God without the Nama? Because we can't see the form, but we seem to have the words, or people are having a descriptive explanation in this cycle. This Rishi is trying to do that.
Yeah.
So, sorry, am I making my question clear?
Yeah, I think I got it. So it's an excellent question, Devalji. So you may remember 3 or 4 weeks ago, we kind of touched upon this idea also, because whatever you and me are doing is only theoretical at this point. Yeah, let's not kid ourselves. If you go to the temple and do something, that's theoretical. And if you throw something into the fire, it is theoretical. If you and me are talking at this point, it's only theoretical, because we have not had aparoksha jnana. So there are 2 types of knowledge there, isn't it? There is something called paroksha jnana and there is the aparoksha jnana. Paroksha jnana is what you get from the studying of the scriptures, because that is the third means of knowledge, right? So you got Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Agama. So we have understood that through Pratyaksha and material Anumana, we are never going to be able to know the Aksharanamaka Paramatma. Okay. So the only way of knowing the Aksharanamaka Paramatma is to go to the third means of knowledge, which is Agama, which is the scriptures or revealed scriptures. And in the Sanatana Dharma, Apaurusha Veda is the highest revealed scripture and the most authoritative that is available, and that is our foundation. And that authoritative scriptures are describing this Paramatma, because what are these authoritative scriptures? These scriptures are revelations, intuitions that the rishis have seen. The rishis who are highly more evolved jnanis, they have intuited these observations about Paramatma, and they have documented their intuitions, which is revealed to them because they are exalted souls in this whole body of text called the Vedas. So we got this stuff here. Now, what are we supposed to do with this? I think that is why Krishna said the first thing you have to do is have faith. Shraddhavan labate jnanam. You remember that verse. It is so important. So how do we as souls start our journey? We start off with Shraddha. Shraddha of that there is knowledge in the Vedic scriptures. And what is that knowledge primarily saying? It is saying there is this Paramatma. If you know about him, you start loving him, then you have devotion to him. And when you have devotion, at one point, he will shed his grace on you. And when you have shed his grace, he will show himself to you. That is aparoksha jnana. And when he shows himself to you, then he becomes known to you. Yeah, he becomes known to you. Yeah, that is what we are supposed to reach. So, but Devalji, unfortunately, we have not reached that stage, but that is where that Shravana, Manana, Nitidhyasana, Sadhana, Satsanga, and all those things come in, so that may not be in this life, but at some point in the future life, we might actually become aparoksha jnanis and may actually know this Brahman from our own inherent capacities. Not all of us will know Brahman at the same level. Each one knows about him only according to his or own capacity. So that is the view, and I hope that answers your question. So moving on. So where were we? So we were talking about all this, fancy philosophy of creatorship and so on. But here is a basic fundamental problem, as Devalji has actually given a very beautiful introduction to the second kanda for us. Why? Because, you and I, we are, most of us are practicing professionals, or we are busy with whatever other things that we do in our lives. So we are practical human beings, right? We are doing all sorts of work. So is Shuanaka. If you remember the third verse of Mundaka Upanishad, first kana, Shuanako havai mahashalaha Angirasam vidivatu upasannaha papracha kasminnu bhagave vijnate sarvamidam vijnatam bhavati. So this is the most fundamental question that he asks. Kasminnu bhagavo vijnate sarvamidam vijnatam bhavati. Who asked that question? This great fellow, Shuanaka. Who is this great fellow, Shuanaka? Shuanako havai mahashalaha. So this fellow was a mahashalaha. Mahashalaha means he was practicing big yajnas. Mahashalaha. Shalaha means yagnashalaha. It could be patashala, it could be yagnashala. Shala means an institution. It could be yagnashala or patashala. And Shuanaka was doing both. He was doing yagnashala and patashala. In fact, I think we did this several months ago. several weeks ago when I gave you a brief overview of who the Shuanaka was, Shuanaka CV, as we said. His CV is pretty impressive. Yeah, he's a prolific writer himself. He has done so much of works that's listed here. He was the chancellor of a Vedic institute that had 10,000 students. He is known to have performed 12-year-long yajnas. And in fact, in his Patashala, for the very first time, 18 Puranas were told. His Patashala was in Naimisharanya. 18 Puranas that was compiled by Veda Vyasa was first discussed in Shuanaka's Patashala. Okay. And his lineage is amazing. Sumantu, Kabantu, Patya, Shuanaka. That is his lineage of teachers from which he comes. He was a grandson of Rishi Gritsmada. You know the Gritsmada Mandala of Rigveda. There are so many beautiful verses of Gritsmada Mandala. And he was son of the sage Sunaka. So he comes with his pedigree, his CV is incredible. Okay. And he was a big Mahashalaha, doing all these activities, running an institution, doing yajna and so on. And I just want to remind you of who this Mahashalaha is. So Shuanaka was a great performer of yajnas. So if we get into Shuanaka's shoe, perhaps maybe somebody in this group is a very hardworking orthopedic surgeon. Somebody may be a very hardworking neurosurgeon. Somebody could be a very hardworking psychiatrist. Somebody may be a hardworking person running the house. Somebody may be doing something else. So we are all doing various activities. Yeah, yajnas. There are all types of yajnas, whether you like it or not. Okay, so we don't have to necessarily throw things into a fire and call ourselves as doing yajnas. Our eating food is also yajna. Our doing work is also yajna. Okay, so this is a very practical question that is being discussed in the second kanda, which I think we need to ruminate and contemplate quite deeply. Then perhaps maybe our personal and professional lives will become a little bit more interesting and worthwhile. Okay, so why do I say that? So what did this verse say? Shaunako havai mahashalaha. Wonderful. Ha, why verily mahashalaha. Yajnashala and Patashala. And how did he approach Angirasa? Kasminnu bhagave vijnate sarvamidam vijnatam bhavati. Bhagavan, revered sir, by knowing what? The knowledge of all I know now around sacrifices, deities, will be meaningful and purposeful. That is the question. I just wanted to remind us all. So that was the basic question. Kasminnu bhagavo vijnate sarvamidam vijnatam bhavati. So I can put pragnesh in this. Kasminnu bhagavo vijnate. I am a big neurosurgeon. But how that will help me progress towards my moksha or liberation? How can I see paravidya in yajnas and on the various rituals that I see? Yeah, which is what we are interested. Some of us may not have time to sit and read the Vedas and contemplate and think about this. We may be doing our jobs, daily jobs. So how do we see that paravidya in our yajnas of daily life? Whatever the yajna is, how is this possible? That is the next stage that the second kanda is beginning to dwell with this. And there is a lot of information to talk here. 13 verses. Okay, so the second kanda has 13 verses, and as you know, the first kanda had 9 verses. This kanda probably will take us 2 to 3 months. We'll see how it goes. Okay, but let's make a start. So the very first mantra of the second kanda again starts with an amazing verse as usual. Tadetat satyam mantreshu karmani kavayo yani pashyan Tani tretayam bahuda santatani tan acharata niyatam satyakamaha yeshavaha pantaha sukrutasya loke. Okay. It feels like a complicated verse, but we will try and split it and understand what is it that Angirasa is teaching. So he said previously, what did he say? This fellow is yes sarvajnaha sarvaved jnanamayam tapaha, etc. Then he said this fellow created the universe. He said everything about in the previous kanda. So there is a logical sequence to this kanda. Into the second kanda, where he says, that akshara is this satyam. Tad yetat satyam. that Akshara. So what are all the names that Angirasa has given this Paramatma? That itself is a very interesting study of Mundaka Upanishad. He has said this Paramatma is called Akshara. He has said this Paramatma is called Brahma. Okay, he has given those. Now he is saying this Paramatma is called Satyam. Yeah. Tad etat Satyam. That is the very first verse. Okay. So before we move progress to the next lines here, first we need to understand what is Satyam, right? So who wants to share with us everything about Satyam that we have read and done manana over the last 2 to 3 years? Because this Satyam comes in various Upanishads. We have done it in Isha Upanishad. We have done it in Chandogya Upanishad. It comes in Srimad Bhagavatam and so on. So who wants to tell us their views of who the Satyam is? Anybody wants to take up this one? I'll give you 5.
Satyam is Bhagavan. That is God himself is called as Satyam.
God. Okay. Thank you, Prakashji. God himself is called Satyam. Excellent. So who was next? Neeta Sushruji?
Yes, so Bhagwan himself is Satyam, but he is the one, also one who does the eightfold dispensation of, all the like Jnana, Adnyana, Bandha, Moksha, and those, and Srishti, Sthiti, Niyamana, and Samhara. So,
Thank you, Sushruti. Yes. Thank you, Neetaji. Yes, you got spot on that. Anybody else?
Yeah, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Right? Yes, Taitra Upanishad, and then Satyam Param Dhimahi.
Yeah, thank you, Srinivasanji. So we all agree that Satyam is a name of Paramatma. Yeah, so Satyam is not true. Some people think Satyam is truth. Yes, Paramatma is the ultimate truth, but Satyam just does not mean truth. Satyam is a deep philosophical name of Brahman. Okay, let us look at this a little bit more. How did this verse? How is this verse structured? Tat yetat Satyam. Tat yetat Satyam. That yetat, that which is very close to you, your Antaryamin, Satyam. Okay. Previously, what he has used, as I said, Akshara and Brahman. Okay. Tat means what? Tataha. Tataha means what? That which is all pervasive. That is the meaning of Brahman. Brahmeti bruhantohi asmin gunaha. Akshara akshnoti iti aksharam. Yeah, that which is all pervasive is called Akshara, one meaning. Brahman means all that, the one that is all pervasive. And that is why that fellow is also called Tat. Tataha, all pervasive. That all pervasive Brahman, Yetat, who is your Antaryamin, very close to you, is called Satyam. His name is Satyam. When I say Paramatma Satyam, I'm not giving him a noun. This is not a noun, right? It is not a name that somebody has given him Namakarna and said, you are Satyam. No, it actually gives an adjective. It describes certain qualities of Paramatma. That is why he is called Satyam. So we should never forget this. So Isha Upanishad, I want to remind you, which we have just done. Hiranmayena patrena satyasya abhihitam mukam Tatvam Fushan Apavrunu Satya Dharmaya Drishtaye. We spent 2 weeks talking about this beautiful verse. Satya is what Isha Upanishad also talks about Brahman. And as Srinivasanji so beautifully mentioned, Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahmavid apnoti param tadesha abhyukta. Who is that Brahman's definition? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman. So Ashnute Sarvan Kaman Saha Brahmana Vipashtita iti. And the Upanishad starts off at a very high note in the Brahma value. Mundaka Upanishad, which we are going to come later in the third. Satyameva Jayate na Anrutam. Satyena Pantaha Vitato Devayanaha. Satyameva Jayate na Anrutam from Mundaka Upanishad. That Satyam is Satyanamaka Paramatma, who is also called Akshara and Brahma. It has nothing to do with the truth only prevails that hangs in all these government offices in India. They've extracted this from Mundaka Upanishad. But the philosophy there is something much more profound. Satyameva Jayate na Anrutam. There, Satyam Jayate means the Supreme Brahman only is always victorious, because he is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. All of us are dependent, useless beings. That fellow alone is independent and he is always victorious. Okay. Na anritam. So they are all beautiful verses. Again, Satya is the name of Paramatma. Okay. Chandogya Upanishad, this famous verse that has been, dare I say, looked at from a very unfortunate angle by others. Sa esha anima aitadatmam idam sarvam tat satyam. Saha atma tattvamasi shvetaketo. Okay. Satyam, Paramatma's name. As again, as Srinivasanji mentioned, Bhagavatam's very first verse finishes with Satyam Param Dhimahi. Okay. Again, in Bhagavatam, Satyasya Satyam it's called. Vishnu Sahasranama says, Satyaha, your name is Satyaha, mate. It says. Okay. So we should never forget that when Angirasa says Tadetat Satyam, there are so much things that we need to think about, go back and think about all the Vedas. They are all the Upanishads and Puranas, and they all say the same thing. Samanvaya is 100%. And that Samanvaya is what? Satyam means not truth. Satyam means that Paramatma, who is called Satyam for certain reasons. What are those reasons why he is called Satyam? Let's go to Chandogya Upanishad, very first way of looking at it. 8th chapter, Brahmano Nama Satyamiti. Okay, no confusion. Brahmano Nama Satyamiti. Brahman's name is Satyamiti. Why is he called Satyam? The Upanishad itself gives the answer there. Why is he called Satyam? Tani ahva etani tridi aksharani. This Satyam has got 3 aksharas. Sat, Thi, Yam, Iti. Sat, Thi and Yam. 3 words, Satyam. Sat, Thi, Yam. Not me. It is the Upanishad itself tells us what Satyam is. Tad. Etas tad. Amrutam. Sat. Tad Amrutam. Yat Ti Tan Martyam. Ata Yad Yam. Tena ube yachati yedena, it goes on. That is not for our discussion today, but briefly, Sat, Amrutam, liberated. Ti Tat Martyam, unliberated. We are all unliberated, so that is why we are going through Martyam, going on cycles of death. A regulator of both. Yam, Yamayati, regulator of both. So, according to Chandogya Upanishad, Satyam is not a name. Satyam defines a certain attributes of this Paramatma. And what is he doing? He is a regulator of those that are liberated, and he is a regulator of those that are unliberated. Okay. So here is a key point of Chandogya Upanishad. If he is a regulator, there must be something that is regulated. Okay. Unless there is something that is regulated, there is no concept of regulator. So that tells you that there is difference between the Niyamaka and the ones that are being controlled. So in the unliberated state, that is you and me. And when we attain our liberation, he will still be controlling us there. So again, eternally we are different. I don't know how people can, look at these verses and say that we'll become the same in moksha. I don't know how they can do that, because these verses are very clear. Look at Purusha Shukta. Purusha eva idang sarvam yadbhutam yachabhavyam uta amrutatvasya ishanaha. This Sat means, Sat and Yam if you take, he is a regulator of the liberated. That is exactly what Purusha Shukta says. Uta amrutatvasya ishanaha. Even for the liberator, he is the ishanaha, he is the controller. If he is the controller of the liberated, then it is understood that he is the controller of the unliberated. Okay, so these are all profound statements that categorically describe that I am different from this Paramatma. This Paramatma is a supreme being. Am I going to call myself as him? We just need to think about this. Is that what the Upanishads are saying here? 100% not. Okay? So here are the other views of Satyam. Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasya Abhihitam Mukam that we have done in Isha Upanishad. There, it gives a different way of looking at Satyam. Brahman we popularly describe as Sat, Chit and Ananda. Sat, Ti and Yam basically describes Sat, Chit and Ananda. Okay, what is Ti? Tati. Tati means Ananda. Ya, Yati, to go. To go means to know, Jnana. Sat means Nirdushta. So Satyam actually means Satchit Anandam, a definition of Brahman that is described in the Upanishads. Then as Neetaji was very briefly mentioning, Satya actually describes the eightfold cosmizations of the universe. We have just done it in the previous Kanda, right? What is this Srishti, Namaruka, Vyakarana? What are all the creating things that he is doing? Urnanabihi, what the hell is all that? We have done it all. Okay? And that is how Angirasa is starting here. When he says, Tadetat Satyam, reminding us that the Aksharanamaka, who creates the universe, he does eightfold dispensation of the universe. So to describe the eightfold dispensation of the universe, he starts off this verse saying, Satya, Sadbhava, Yapayati, Satta, Yapayati, Sada, Yapayati, Yat Sat Tat Yamayati, Sadal Yapayati, Avasada Yapayati, Nirdushta Sthiti Yapayati, Avasada Yapayati. So these are all the etymologies of Satya for those of you who are interested. I put this all in this slide for our benefit. By doing the etymological understanding of Satya, we understand the eightfold cosmic dispensation of the universe that Aksharanamaka Paramatma was celebrated in the previous Kanda. And again, let's not forget these mantras we have just done, right? So we have just done this. Janmadhyasya, Taitareya, Brahma Sutra, Shvetashvatara Upanishad. We haven't done it for today's class. So let's do this. Samsara Moksha Sthiti Bandha Hetuhu. That is the definition of Brahman in Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Samsara, your and mine samsara. Our moksha, bandha. We are all here in samsara bandha. Who is the person who is giving bandha? And our sthiti, our existence, our the way we are doing things. What is all? Who is doing all this? Samsara, moksha, sthiti, bandha hetu. He who is responsible for all this is Brahman. Or he who does, who is a controller, who does all this is Brahman. Okay. So in that sense, I just want to close by reminding us, Satya, when I say Satya, only Brahman can be Satyam. Nobody else can be Satyam because he is the only one, Jagat Vyapara Varjam. He is the only one who does eightfold cosmizations of the universe. He is the only one who is independently, infinitely Satchitananda. He is the only one who controls us in our liberated state as well as in the unliberated state. But none of us are. We cannot create the universe. Some people think they can create the universe and call themselves as Brahman. Ask them to make a piece of cake, even that they can't do properly, and they claim that they are going to be the creators of the universe. In that sense, we are not Satya, because Satya is only Paramatma. Okay? But Jagat and the souls are Asatya in the sense that we are not Satya. We can't do any of this. In that sense, we are Asatya. Okay. But here that Asatya means not that we are false, like the Tathagatas. The Tathagatas, the Buddhist view is we are all Asat, nobody exists, period. Yeah. Whether you like it or not, that is a fact of Tathagata Mata. So this is not a Tathagata view of Asatya, of everything is illusion, everything is unreal. No. Here, Asatya means we are not Brahman. So that is how we have to understand. Satya means Brahman. We are not Brahman, so we are called Asatya. Okay. He is Satya because he is a creator. We are not Satya because we are not the creator of the universe. Therefore, we can be called Asatya. Okay. But some people can pervert that argument and say we are all illusions. So that is their view. That does not mean we or the universe do not exist. So this is the idea that we have to extract from the previous Kanda when we make our Pravesha into how Angirasa now is going to approach a fundamental question that Shuanaka has had. I am a big Mahashalaha. I am doing all these professional activities. How can I convert my professional activities as a celebration of the Satyam? Yeah, so that is the question that we are going to be dealing with in the next subsequent classes. Okay. So I'm going to close at that point because there are lots and lots of ideas that we have discussed. And of course, there are lots and lots of slides that we need to discuss when we tackle these verses, because there's lots and lots of core fundamental philosophies that we need. And when we understand these views of the Upanishads, then the thought in the Bhagavad Gita just flows quite naturally. You know, the Bhagavad Gita, after all, is what is the essence of the Upanishads, right? Karma yoga that is taught in Bhagavad Gita is what this Kanda primarily talks about. How do you do that karma anushtana in your yaga and yajna and your professional activities and so on? So we will deal with that in the coming classes. So on that note, I'm going to close today's session. Krishna pranamastu. And if there are any questions, we can take it up over the next 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, cool. So no questions. Wonderful. So next Sunday, we have an amazing session again in our satsang. So this is Sankhya Yoga of Gita. So we have done chapter 1, as you know, 4 weeks ago, and end of every month, we are doing Gita Chintana, right? So next Sunday is Sankhya Yoga Chintana Part A, and we're going to do it in 2 parts. And that is how Anand Kulkarni ji has planned it out for all of us. So Anand Kulkarni from Manchester is going to be leading the Sankhya Yoga for us. So do join us next Sunday. We are going to be doing the first 38 verses, I think, the Sankhya part of it. And as you know, second chapter of the Gita is the foundation for the rest of the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, so I think I cannot stress this enough, that a proper understanding of the Sankhya and Yoga will be critical for us as we progress towards next chapters of Gita. So I'm really looking forward to Anand Kulkarni ji taking us through this. With that note, I'll close today's session. Krishna pranamastu. Take care, everyone, and see you next Sunday. And stay safe and enjoy the rest of the evening. Hare Krishna.